It was late. I had probably been driving for over 10 hours, trying to make it home in Allentown. I've traveled across New Hampshire most of my adult life. As a professional truck driver hauling logs in on most nights, I can tell you that I can handle the long hauls from Allentown, Penn State, up into the White Mountains. But bad weather can make you run out of your drive time really fast. Typically when that happens, I'll find a shortcut down some of the shorter, narrow roads that 18-wheelers probably shouldn't venture on, and I'll cut my time in half. And that is what happened when I decided to take a turn onto Clear Creek Road. Now I'm sure some of you have heard the rumors and wondered if the road really is haunted like they say. Well, until last night I would have told you no. In fact, I've probably taken the road plenty of times before, and I've not even thought about it. But this particular night, I knew that my drive time was running out, and that I would need to find a place to stop for the night. I kept checking the time wondering if I could get to the next state highway before the minutes ran out. But as my heavy wheels kept clogging on the road, I knew that it wouldn't be possible. And then I saw a neon sign shine in the darkness. Mel's Meals, open 23 hours a day. It was a rest stop. Out here? I had never seen a rest stop on this road before. There was another truck already parked, and I could almost smell the food coming from the diner. The GPS told me it was another 20 minutes before my next turn. I knew something didn't feel right, but I was so tired. I decided if someone else had decided to stop here, then it must be safe. I activated my air brakes and I grabbed my big 72-ounce cup I bought a while back and I checked the time. 7:13 p.m. I knew it was later than that. It had to be. It was so dark. I walked towards the diner and then looked at the other trucker that had pulled in to catch a night's rest. I didn't recognize the logo on the side of the truck. The truck itself looked old and rusted like it had been built in the 80s. And then I heard a sound that made my heart skip a beat. It shuddered and boomed and shook the trailer. I heard the loud screeching noise like massive claws against the metal as I backed away and looked towards the cab. A big pop. A man wearing a full bodysuit jumped from the cab and moved towards the trailer with something glistening in his right palm. It looked like an electric cow prod. My mind raced as I watched him unlatch the trailer and climb inside. I heard more screams, the rattling of chains and the loud shock of the cattle prod zapping whatever was inside. And then he climbed out and latched the gate back up. He didn't seem to notice me at all and he placed the weapon back in his cab before climbing in and shutting the door. I wasn't about to approach him and ask him what that was all about. In fact, if I still had the remaining drive time, I would have left right there and then. But our trucks are monitored by the company I work for, and any sort of violation like that would have put me out of work without question. So I mustered up some courage and I walked inside the diner. As I expected, it was almost entirely empty, save for one waitress and a cook I caught a glimpse of in the small window to the rear. A bell jingled softly on the door as I walked in and the spunky blonde waitress smiled cheerfully towards me. "Evening, hoss. Welcome to Mel's Meals. I'm Cindy," she said excitedly as she trotted off to get a menu. A scratchy version of A Little Less Conversation played on the jukebox as I followed her to an open booth. She passed me a menu, but when I looked at it, the brochure actually seemed unnecessary. Something wrong, hon?" Cindy asked as she smacked some bubblegum. "There's only one item on the menu," I pointed out. "The house special." I was starving and I ordered it and asked for a glass of tea. And then I heard that familiar jingle and I saw another man walk into the diner. At first, I thought it would be the spandex-loving driver that I had just seen. But this man didn't look familiar to me at all. He was wearing cowboy boots that made soft clinks on the tile floor and a biker jacket and an Outback hat. He took a look at me and I smiled halfway. "With a get-up like that, you sure stand out like a sore thumb," I told him. He didn't even bother to make a response to me and just shimmied over to the bar. taking off his hat, and then he asked in a gruff voice for some coffee. I glanced out towards the parking lot, but I still noticed that there were only 2 trucks. Where had this guy come from? I checked the clock on the wall, surprised again to find that it hadn't changed a minute since I had gotten here. Enjoy some hash browns while we cook up your order, hon. They're on the house, Cindy said, placing a plate in front of me. They had rearranged the food to look like a smiley face. I made a little chuckle and I started to eat. The food was good. The music was a tad off. But I was starting to relax for just a minute when the cook came out carrying a large silver platter with some meat on it. It was sizzling so loud that I could hear it as he just put it down in front of me. "First time here?" he asked me. I looked at the tattoo on his arm and I remarked, "Mel was your wife?" "My sister. Ran this diner for years before she gave me the keys to the kingdom," he said as he wiped grease from his face. "Do you get a lot of business?" I asked, looking about. Besides the cowboy and I, the place was deserted. "Nah, you know how rumors spread in a place like this," he said with a chuckle. He was really friendly. And the food looked so good that I couldn't say no. He walked back into the kitchen and I reached for my fork to chow down. And then I felt a strong grip on my shoulder and I looked over to see the cowboy standing there over me. "Howdy, stranger," I told him, hoping to be jovial. "You don't want to be here," he whispered. "I'm sorry?" I asked, looking at his eyes. "Put your silverware, pick up your keys, and leave this place," he said. He was staring straight towards Cindy. No, not to her, but to the clock right behind her head. It still hadn't moved past 7:13. "Sorry, friend, I know you probably mean well, but I'm not going anywhere tonight," I told him as I reached my fork again. The bell jingled again before I could take a bite. The man in the bodysuit was entering and he didn't look happy. He was pacing the doorway as Cindy walked up to him. "Don't let him fool ya," and the cowboy said as he released his grip on me and shuffled his way back to his seat. The waitress and the newcomer were having what seemed to be a heated discussion, but I only could pick up bits and pieces of it above the music. "Not now. This came too early. Shipment. Supply and demand." And then I heard the noise again, louder than ever before, coming from the trailer, coming from hell itself. This time I dropped my fork. As it clattered to the floor, Cindy gave me a half smile. "Sorry to disturb you, sir. Just talking shop," she replied and gave the Spandex man a stink. He actually looked downright hilarious wearing that skin-tight suit in here, and I was too intrigued to eat. He walked back towards his truck and I watched out of the corner of my eye as several workers moved from the side of the diner to his trailer door. They all had chains and long prods just like he had used earlier. They were moving whatever was inside of the back storage room. I pretended to get up and get a refill and I walked straight towards the cowboy, sliding right in beside him to whisper, "Is that what I think it is?" I asked. "Leave. Now," he said. He was almost begging me. And the shrieking and the scratching I heard earlier was now coming from the kitchen. And then I heard the sound of a grinding saw. It was cutting against bone. I dropped my glass. I looked at the cowboy. His eyes were whiter than a sheet. The doors to the kitchen opened and the cook looked out with blood covering his face and apron. I didn't have to be told what to do this time. I moved to the door and I stumbled through the dark parking lot. I was panting like an Olympic marathoner. I grabbed a hold of the side of the truck and then looked towards the back. The doors were still open. I froze as I heard more growls coming from inside. I reached into my pocket and took out a pocket knife walking towards the door. My truck was only about 30 feet away, right on the other side. I kept my eyes on the shimmied door at all times, using my phone to illuminate the darkness and see what was on the other side. It was so dark. I could hear the snaps and the yelps. I stumbled towards my door, and I climbed into my cab. When the headlights came on, I saw exactly what they were hauling. Gray scaly skin, a long wretched tail with bones protruding out of the side, but a face and a chest like that of a man. It looked towards me with eyes that were begging. I pressed down on my air brakes and I backed away. It struggled against its chains louder as I saw the cook look towards the road. I didn't stop until the diner was well out of sight. Until this morning. I haven't slept a wink. My hands are still shaking even as I try to type this. I know pretty soon I'll have to call my boss and explain why I went against DOT regulations. I'm not sure what I will say, but one thing is certain. I will not be going down Clear Creek Road again.